Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick. How are you all? We have a rules update for X-Wing 2nd edition. So, like I always do with these documents, we're going to go through these one by one and talk about all of the changes to the game. Just a quick heads up though, this is nothing new in terms of new products or pilots or upgrades. This is just rules clarifications on what we already have in the game. Although I would like to make a quick announcement before I dive into these. We have confirmation that at Star Wars Celebration over this coming weekend, FFG will be announcing Wave 5 of X-Wing. Which is cool because we don't even have details and stuff from Wave 4. So we're going to have a lot of ships that we know about, but not many details. This is confirmed to be happening 11 AM Saturday Chicago time, which is GMT -5 for those of you in different time zones. For us here in Australian Eastern Standard Time, here in Melbourne, this is going to be 2 AM Sunday morning. So I'll be staying up to watch whoever streams this. We have confirmation that neither FFG nor the Star Wars YouTube channel will be streaming that event in particular. We're hearing reports that Gold Squadron might be doing that, but in any case, we're going to have announcements. And even if we don't get to watch the panel, they'll likely drop the articles the next day or post the images on Twitter. They usually do something like that while these things happen. In any case, let's have a look at these rules. And a nice addition to this document, FFG have saw it fit to actually put a reference on the front page telling us exactly where to find all the changes, which I greatly appreciate. But like always, everything new is highlighted in magenta, so let's just scroll down and go through these bit by bit and talk about these changes. First of all, difficulties for action. There are 3 difficulties for actions. There used to be 2, just white and red. Now there's white, red, and purple. Purple actions are decreed to be the most difficult out of all of them. That's the one that causes you to spend a force token. You cannot execute that action unless you have an active force token. Also, just like things were before, anything that changes the difficulty of actions, you default to the effect that makes it the most difficult. Now, currently, there is nothing in the game that makes an action purple, although that could be a very interesting design space. It feels like maybe like a damage card or something could do that. Not that we really want to be adding different damage decks into the game, but it's something that FFG could play with at some stage. So yes, if there is anything that makes actions red or purple, the effect that makes that action purple is what takes precedent, and that action is therefore purple. Okay, moving right along to this clarification about attacks. Oh, one more thing I want to talk about in this video. For those of you who are relatively new to the game, a lot of these rules interactions might not make a lot of sense to you, and reading these rules interactions you might think, well, why does that have to be clarified? And I'll explain that as well. A ship cannot attack a ship at range 0 even if the attack range would be 1. And basically that is a rules clarification to dictate what would happen in this situation right here, where the attacking ship could shoot the other ship that is touching them at range 1, but because they're touching, it does not matter whether that's in arc or out of arc, that is at range 0 and cannot be shot. Remember, the fluff of what's happening when 2 ships are colliding on an X-Wing mat is, well, the game doesn't really represent vertical space, so that is like the 2 ships are flying past each other, where one is on top and one is below, so they cannot shoot each other in that situation. That is what bumping represents, and it doesn't matter where you're shooting out of your arc, you cannot shoot any ship that you are touching. This is how the game's always been, but it's just good to have a bit of more clarification on that. Oftentimes these clarifications are made because there was a tournament somewhere where this was confusing for whatever reason, so it's always good to have that reference just in case. We have some clarifications on relocating. This is to do with the Buzz Droids and DRK-1 probe droid for the Separatists that just came out a couple of weeks ago in Wave 3. To relocate a device, do the following. Pick up and replace the device as described in the effect that relocated it. This can involve a template or might place the device at a ship's guides. In the case of the DRK-1 probe droid, that uses a template just like a ship does, as in you put the template in the guides and move it to the other side just like you would with a ship executing a maneuver. And with the Buzz droids, you actually put them physically inside the nubs of a ship's template, as described on their remote cards. A device that relocates does not count as moving through or overlapping an obstacle, which is quite cool. If you think about it, it means that a DRK-1 probe droid can just fly directly through something, because that does not count as a maneuver. Relocating counts as being physically in one space and then instantaneously being in the other. It doesn't count as moving across that maneuver template, which is important to remember. Despite the fact you do have to remember that some remotes do say they cannot be placed on top of an asteroid or rock or gas cloud or whatever. That is described on the cards, but they don't move like ships do. Okay, this one's good because this is actually something that I wasn't sure about myself. When you execute a maneuver and you go to check the difficulty, if you did a blue maneuver, you can remove a stress token and one strain token. I was previously speculating on this because a stress token and a strain token both function in the same way that a blue maneuver removes them from the ship. I wasn't sure if you got to do both at the same time or whether it would be one or the other. Kind of felt like stacking the tokens up like stress tokens would have a similar kind of effect, so you would have to choose one or the other, but you can do both. It feels like it powers down the strain tokens in my mind a little bit, but that's probably fair enough. The effects that give strain tokens so far in the game are already relatively efficient, so I think this is probably the right call power level wise. Also, we have the clarification on gas clouds that you skip your perform action step when you fly over. This is this new kind of obstacle that gives the ship an extra defensive bonus if it's defending through it. The good thing here is you skip your perform action step. It doesn't mean you definitely can't perform actions, but this is something that's constant across all obstacles. Remember, a ship sitting on a rock or debris cloud, a gas cloud can still be coordinated, can still take actions in that way if they're not stressed and all that kind of stuff. So that rule still remains constant across all of them. Also, when you're defending through a gas cloud, if at least one gas cloud obstructs an attack, the defender may change one blank result to an evade result. Functions the same way as the old auto thrusters, which is very good in terms of dice math. So pretty much everything that we've come to expect with the gas clouds is true. Just we have some final clarifications on that which are very important. And yes, I dare say they're going to be quite prevalent because of how they combo nicely with certain ships. Okay, and we have a few more things to do with remotes. Remotes are devices that have initiative, agility, and hull and can be attacked. A remote can be declared as the defender. While attacking a remote, treat it as a ship with the following exceptions and notes. Effects that refer to a friendly ship does not apply to a remote. So for example, DFS 311 cannot pass a calculate token to a remote. That makes perfect sense. Effects that refer to enemy ships only apply to a remote if the attacker is the source of the effect. Alright, that makes sense. So I guess if Boba Fett's attacking a remote at range 1, he gets a reroll. Cool, that makes sense. If a remote does not have a midway line, a ship cannot be in front or behind or flanking a remote. Okay, that makes sense. So if you're using like Graz against a remote and it doesn't have any discernible way to mark whether something is in front or behind it, which I guess both remotes currently don't, Graz can't get his bonus. Makes perfect sense. An attack made against a remote can be obstructed and range bonuses are applied as normal. Cool, sounds good. So it gets all the benefits from gas clouds, asteroids, that kind of stuff. And you get one more dice if you're fighting it against it at range 1. Damaging remotes. If a remote suffers one or more hit or crit damage, deal one face down damage card to it. If it has a number of damage cards greater than or equal to its hull, it's destroyed. After a remote is destroyed, remove it from the play area. If the attack occurred at the same initiative as the remote, it's removed after everything else with simultaneous fire. So remotes can't take critical damage. This makes perfect sense because there are certain critical cards which don't make any sense on remotes, sort of the pilot cards that add like stress tokens or interact with pilot abilities. It wouldn't make any sense on remotes because they don't have that kind of thing, so everything is just raw damage. Sounds good. You still use up your damage cards, so for whatever that's worth. Using remotes, a remote activates during the activation phase, engages during the engagement phase, at its initiative, yep, as you'd expect, but only behaves as listed in its entry. Additionally, the following applies to remotes. A remote cannot perform actions or being assigned tokens except for locks, which is really your enemy's token anyway. A remote can be relocated. Some devices cause damage to remotes as described on the individual entries. If a device does not state that it affects remotes, it does not affect remotes. Okay, we'll take a look at those devices in a second so we can see what that's talking about. But that all sounds pretty standard. It just can't take tokens, doesn't take face-up damage cards. It doesn't interact with those kind of things like ships do because it can't. There's no functional way for it to do that. Okay, and let's just take a quick look at these devices so we can see what that last reference was talking about. We can see here the bomblet generator affects remotes just like it would a regular ship. A Cononet does not, because Cononets interact with ion tokens. That makes sense. Now, at first glance, it would look like the proton bomb does give remotes face-up damage cards, but remember, when a remote takes a critical damage, it just takes a face-down damage card, so it interacts with remotes by just giving them face-down damage cards, and ships take critical damage. Proxy mines don't work with remotes, and seismic charges work alongside remotes as well, damaging those. So right now, all of the bombs hurt remotes and all of the mines don't. I think that makes perfect sense. Okay, some clarifications on the keyword solitary. So on the tactical relay cards, like Kraken right here, you can see it has the word solitary, and that means you can't have another tactical relay card with the term solitary on it. We didn't have a full clarification on this before. I was personally wondering whether or not that would be applicable across different upgrade types. Not that we have any other ones. We only have tactical relays with solitary on them currently. And this section of the rules reference clarifies that solitary is only restricted inside of upgrade types. So you can only have one solitary tactical relay, but if we ever get like crew with solitary on them, you would be able to have one solitary crew and one solitary tactical relay if, that's all in the same faction, if that's possible. The fact that FFG clarified this specifically makes me think they are going to do that at some stage. I just can't imagine how that's going to be. I would have thought, maybe like Sith Lords could be solitary, but no. We've got Dooku and Sidious, and they don't use solitary. Maybe Jedi on the Republic might use solitary. Don't know. It'd be worth looking out for that kind of thing. It's good to have this knowledge in advance. Okay, strain. A ship is strained while it has one strain token. While a strained ship defends, it rolls one fewer defense die than the strain token. The strain token is a red token. After a strain token defends, it removes a strain token. After a strain ship executed blue maneuver, it removes one strain token. So this is interesting. A ship is strained while it has at least one strain token. While it is strained, it rolls one fewer defense die. So you can't actually stack these up. In that regard, they don't actually work like tractor tokens, which is kind of interesting. But at the very least, if you do stack them up, it means that the ship will definitely be strained the next turn if you haven't already knocked it off somehow. I don't know, strain tokens don't really feel all that powerful when you appreciate all the different ways you have to outmaneuver them. But that's okay, deleting dice is a very powerful effect nonetheless, so I guess it makes sense. At the end of this document, we have a Q&A section that talk about specific rules interactions that have been asked several times to FFG. I'm not going to go through all of these, but there are a couple that I specifically want to talk about. Namely this one here. Objects. What does ignore objects mean? Do Han Solo pilot and Kira crew work together? What about Dash, YT2400 and Outrider? And basically, the answer to that is, and you can read it here on the screen if you want to, is if you want to work out what Han can do in terms of get benefit from cards like Trickshot and Kira, or Dash getting benefits from Outrider, basically, you as the player get all of the benefits from those interactions and none of the downsides. Han, with the Kira crew, can still attack on the rock he has locked. It still counts as being obstructed for his ability or for the ability of Trickshot. Also, your opponent does not get an additional green dice. However, you do when you're being attacked back. It's all explained here in very nauseating detail, so I'll let you guys read it. Also, the link to download this document is down below, so you can read and understand all of that. But yes, Han and Kira were always designed to work together. Just a little bit awkward how they worded it, that's all. Okay, this is a good one because this caused a lot of confusion when we were looking at some of these pilot abilities as they were being revealed. If the difficulty of an action is not stated, such as Lando Calrissian Rebels' unique action or the coordinate action Vizier TIE Reaper can perform as part of its pilot ability, what is the difficulty of that action? The answer is white. If it was red or purple, it would state that on the card. Specifically when Vizier was spoiled, people were saying there's absolutely no way that could be a white action. They wouldn't allow him to do something that is red on his action bar. That's not how pilot abilities work. If it was red, it would state it outright. Action on a pilot ability or a crew card or something is not referential to the actions on that action bar, so don't assume that they're going to be the same colour because of that. Okay, here's a good one. Does Cavill in the Scum BTLA-4 Y-Wing roll an additional attack die when attacking with a turret weapon when the turret arc indicator is set to his front arc? Yes, he does. Also, it specifies that if he was to perform some kind of attack that is bullseye arc only, it would still have that same effect even though it's inside his forward-facing arc. Not that there's anything that does that for him just now, but just in case an upgrade card does that in the future, that would work. And if you have a look at the Cavill card, you can see he specifies a non-forward arc attack. That doesn't mean that the opponent has to be outside his firing arc like the first edition version of Cavill. It just means he has to perform attack that does not utilise that symbol like his primary attack. So any turret attack, no matter where it is going to activate off of Cavill. Very, very useful. Does the Star Viper class attack platform ship ability micro thrusters apply to the barrel roll that results from becoming tracted? Micro thrusters does affect this barrel roll. The player whose effect assigned the tractor token determines the direction and position of the template. That's kind of interesting. The barrel roll from a tractor token allows your opponent to choose where your ship would go. It means you can be placed on a rock, which is kind of scary with micro thrusters, something you've got to be very careful of. Never really occurred to me that that could be an interaction, but that does exist. Okay, and we'll leave it there, guys. If you guys want to read through the rest of these yourself, click the link down in the description to see the document. There's just a bunch more clarifications here, which are pretty much already things that we knew, but just in case, it's worth having a read through these yourself. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned. We will cover all of the news that comes out of Star Wars Celebration for X-Wing Wave 5. In the meantime, do not forget to like and subscribe. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Reddit. Please consider supporting my Patreon. Thank you so much to all of my existing patrons. I'll catch you guys in the next video.